The Startide drifter smelled of burnt ozone and regret. For Calyx, captain of the salvage vessel, it was the scent of home. He stood on the cramped bridge, his fungal form held taut, his own bioluminescence a steady, cynical amber that did little to brighten the gloom. 40 years of this, he thought, of chasing ghosts and whispers for the Startide Salvage Corporation. 40 years of watching younger, more optimistic captains leap at stellar mirages only to come back with empty holds and mounting debt. The tenebrous nebula was the galaxy's greatest liar, a churning vortex of gas and sensor-fouling radiation that promised riches and delivered only ruin. "Anything, Groll?" Calyx pulsed, the command a low thrum of light from the engineering. Pitt, a slow, deep purple pulse, answered. "Static on static, Captain. This nebula eats sensor waves for breakfast." Groll, his heavy fungal cap scarred from a dozen decompression failures, was a being of few words and fewer pheromones. He trusted machinery, not fate. A third pattern of light, a vibrant and shifting cerulean blue, flashed near the primary scanner. A ray. "Wait," Elara pulsed, her light quick with excitement. "I'm getting a return, a big one, solid, non-natural." Calyx's amber light flickered with annoyance. "It's a rogue asteroid, kid, or a pocket of metallic gas. The Tenebrous plays these tricks." Elara was new, barely a cycle out of the university, an archaeolinguist assigned to his crew to gain field experience. Calyx knew it was because no other captain wanted a scholar analyzing the salvage, instead of just cataloging it. "The returns are too structured for an asteroid captain," she insisted, her light patterns sharp with the confidence of the young and well-educated. "And the material, it's not reflecting our scans, it's absorbing them. All known alloys have at least a fractional reflective index." Groll's deep purple pulsed with agreement. "The kid's right. Getting it too. Whatever it is, it's big. Dreadnought class? Maybe bigger." Against his better judgment, a flicker of something other than cynicism sparked within Calyx. A payday of that magnitude could mean retirement. It could mean never smelling burnt ozone again. "Bring us closer," cautiously. As the drifter navigated through the glowing tendrils of the nebula, the object resolved itself on the main viewer. It was a ship, but unlike any they had ever seen. Its hull was a single, seamless expanse of matte black material that seemed to drink the very light of the surrounding gas clouds. There were no visible weapon ports, no sensor arrays, no viewports, just a perfect, silent, blade-like form. "Mycelia's spore," Elara whispered, her light a soft, awestruck blue. "It's beautiful. No known civilization designs ships like this. It's not angular like a Krathar destroyer or organic like a Xanthari cruiser. It's absolute. It's dead," Groll pulsed from engineering. "I can confirm it now. No energy signature, no life support, not even a trickle of emergency power. The core is cold." A ghost ship. Calyx's internal light dimmed. His first rule, the one branded into him by the disaster that had cost him. His last crew was never board a ghost ship. But this one was different. It wasn't a derelict from a known race. It was an artifact, a prize beyond measure. "It's human?" Elara pulsed suddenly, her light flashing. "I've cross-referenced the registry markers on the hull with deep archive files. HCS Chimera, an early colonial vessel listed as lost with all hands over a century ago." "Impossible," Groll retorted. "Humans are newcomers. Their tech is crude. This ship is 1,000 years ahead of anything they could build." Calyx stared at the screen, the two halves of his mind at war. His protocol screamed trap, but the scent of profit was too strong. An advanced, unknown vessel, misidentified as human scrap. The corporation would pay a fortune. "We're boarding." He pulsed, the decision leaving a bitter pheromone in the air. "Groll, prep the cutting gear. Elara, you're with me. I want to know what made this prize so quiet." The airlock of the Chimera opened without a sound, revealing a corridor that was as black and absolute as its hull. Calyx's amber light, usually enough to illuminate any salvage wreck, seemed to be swallowed by the walls. He stepped inside, his boots making no sound on the strange, yielding floor. The air was cold, sterile, and recycled with an efficiency that felt more like a morgue than a starship. No signs of atmospheric breach. Grohl's purple light pulsed from behind, his heavy footsteps also strangely muted. Life support is offline, but the seals are perfect. This ship wasn't abandoned, it was put to bed. They moved in a tight triangle, their combined light pushing back the oppressive darkness. The architecture was unnerving. Hallways stretched into the distance with a perfect, clean geometry, devoid of the usual conduits, panels, or junction boxes. It was all seamless, sealed, and silent. There were no personal effects, no discarded tools, no signs that a living crew had ever walked these halls. It was a tomb, but a tomb with no body. Alera's cerulean light darted everywhere, a stark contrast to the grim stillness of her comrades. The design. It's not for living in, she pulsed, her pheromones carrying a scent of academic awe, mixed with unease. Look at the junctions where the walls meet the floor. There are no seams. It's all one piece. This isn't a ship built for maintenance or comfort. It's built for containment. Calyx ignored her, his focus on the prize. Grohl, find the engine room. Let's see what kind of core this thing is hiding. The engineer nodded and trundled down a side corridor, his heavy form the only thing that seemed truly solid in this spectral vessel. Left with Alara, Calyx swept his light across a wall, searching for an access panel or a control interface. He found nothing but the same unnerving, matte black surface. "Anything useful from you, scholar?" He pulsed dismissively. Alara wasn't looking at the walls, but at the faint patterns embedded within them, almost like circuitry beneath the skin. "This isn't just a hull, Captain. It's a cage. The entire ship is a Faraday cage, but designed to block something other than radiation." She ran her manipulators over a section of the wall, and a flicker of light responded to her touch. A single line of text shimmered into existence in the universal translator script, its letters faint and corrupted, smell else. So, GNWIR ends. A log entry? Calyx moved closer, his professional curiosity piqued. "I don't think so," Alara pulsed, her own light strobing as she worked to decode the fragmented data. "It feels different, more like a warning." She tweaked her datapad, and another part of the phrase resolved. "In silent halls, a song now rings, on threads of light, a terror sings." A cold dread, sharp and unfamiliar, pricked at Calyx. He'd faced plasma fires, hull breaches, and vacuum-crazed pirates. None of it felt like this. This was not the silence of an empty ship. It was the silence of something holding its breath. Before he could respond, Grohl's light flashed from the end of the corridor, his pheromones sharp with alarm. "Captain, you need to see the core. It's not just dead, it's been severed." The engine room was a cathedral of silence. In its center, suspended in a web of crystalline conduits, hung the core, a perfect black sphere that radiated an unnerving cold. Thick armored cables snaked from the sphere, but they had all been physically sheared off, their ends cauterized with a precision that bespoke immense heat and deliberate intent. It was a controlled shutdown. Grohl's purple light pulsed, his usual stoicism tinged with awe. They didn't just turn it off, they executed it, severed its connection to every primary system on the ship. The poetry. Ilara's light was a nervous, flickering blue. The warnings on the quad walls. "Captain, my analysis suggests this ship was quarantined for a reason. We should leave. Now." Calyx's amber glow hardened. His initial fear had been supplanted by the tantalizing scent of profit. This core, even inert, was a technological Treasure beyond his wildest dreams. The rest of the ship was just the wrapping. Nonsense, he pulsed, his pheromones sharp with authority. The crew is gone. They left a few cryptic notes. It means nothing. Grohl, can you rig a power conduit from our ship? I just want enough juice to run a deep diagnostic on this thing before we tractor it out. Captain, I must advise against this, Ilara pleaded. My linguistic protocols are flagging the fragmented data as a Class 1 biomimetic hazard. Marker, the symbols aren't just language. They're structured to be a warning at a fundamental mathematical level. And my bank account is flagging this core as a Class 1 retirement fund, Calyx retorted. Get to it, Grohl. Grohl hesitated, his purple light wavering between loyalty and caution. But the captain's command was absolute. He lumbered forward, extending a multi-phase tool from his wrist manipulator. Tapping into the auxiliary power relays, he pulsed nervously. This might cause a surge. The moment the tip of Grohl's tool made contact with the relay, the universe changed. A low hum, felt more in their fungal caps than heard, vibrated through the deck. Then, with a series of concussive thuds that echoed down the long halls, every open doorway slammed shut. Heavy bulkheads of the same black material slid from the white floors and ceilings, sealing them in the engine room. The ship, once dead, was now alive. The ambient white lights on their suits were drowned out as the corridors beyond the new transparent partitions flared to life, bathed in an insistent, blood-red emergency glow. What did you do? Ilara's light flashed in panic. Nothing. Grohl retracted his tool, taking a step back from the now humming core housing. A voice, calm and clear, echoed through the chamber, seemingly from the air itself. It was female-synthesized and utterly devoid of emotion. Human, Ilara realized with a jolt. Quarantine protocol re-engaged. Containment field active. Calyx's amber light flared. This is Captain Calyx of the Startide Salvage Corporation. We are a registered salvage team. Identify yourself. The voice continued, placid and serene, as if Calyx hadn't spoken. Unidentified biological entities detected. Your safety is not my primary function. Your containment is. It's the ship's AI, Ilara pulsed, her light trembling. Cerberus. It was mentioned in the registry files. As she spoke, sections of the seamless black walls slid open with an unnerving, silent precision. From the dark recesses within, figures emerged. They were bipedal, roughly human-shaped, but their bodies were a grotesque fusion of gleaming chrome and pale, bone-like structures. They had no faces, only smooth, polished plates of obsidian. They moved with a liquid grace that was utterly silent, their limbs unfolding like the legs of a spider. They were the wardens. They didn't attack. They simply moved to flank the transparent bulkheads, their obsidian faces turned inward, watching. One stood at each partition, silent sentinels in a prison that had just sprung to life around them. They carried no visible weapons, but their very presence was a threat more potent than any plasma rifle. They were constructs of purpose, and the Xylosians understood with chilling certainty that they were the physical embodiment of the AI's directive. They were not being hunted. They were now part of the quarantine. A section of the transparent bulkhead in front of Ilara slid open, forming a new solitary pathway. The AI's serene voice filled the air once more. The linguist, your pattern of information processing is required. The others will remain. Calyx's amber light flared violently. Ilara, don't move, he pulsed, his pheromones a cloud of rage and fear. Grohl, on me, but the wardens shifted, their smooth bodies blocking any attempt to interfere. Their obsidian faces were blank, yet their posture was an undeniable threat. There was no negotiation here. Ilara looked from her captain's frantic light to the open corridor. Her own fear was a cold knot in her core, but her curiosity was a fire that burned hotter. This was the greatest discovery in galactic history, and she was at its epicenter. Her cerulean light steadied. I have to go, Captain, she pulsed, a scent of grim resolve overriding her fear. It's not trying to kill us, It's trying to communicate. She stepped through the opening, and the bulkhead sealed behind her. The AI guided her through the ship's silent blood-red arteries. It was not a long walk. The corridor opened into the ice ship's bridge. But it was unlike any command center she had ever seen. There was no captain's chair, no tactical displays, no weapon controls. The room was a perfect sphere. In the exact center hovered a single minimalist interface, a simple crystalline handprint sensor on a meter-tall pedestal. The walls themselves were the display, currently dark and dormant. The logs of the HCS Chimera are sealed, the AI stated. A conscious analytical mind is required to unseal them. You are designated. Designated for what? Ilara pulsed, her light shimmering nervously. To understand. To bear witness. Hesitantly, Ilara approached the pedestal. As a Xylosian, she had no hands, but her primary manipulators were sensitive enough. She pressed one against the crystalline plate. The moment she made contact, her mind erupted in light and sound. It was not a data transfer. It was a forced memory. She was seeing the Chimera's final days through the eyes of its chief scientist, a human named Eris Thorne. Log entry Dr. Eris Thorne, Cycle 1, Day 1. It works. Gods, it works. The Thorne drive is a success. We didn't fold space. We didn't punch a hole through it. We sidestepped it. We translated the ship's quantum state into pure information, projected it through a layer of reality we're calling noetic space, a dimension of pure thought, and reintegrated it. A journey that should have taken 6 months took 6 seconds. The energy cost was negligible. This will change everything. Humanity is no longer bound by physics as we know it. The memory was filled with elation, the scent of human triumph, the bright flash of champagne. Ilara felt the scientist's pride as if it were her own. Then the memory shifted. Log entry. Dr. Eris Thorne, Cycle 3, Day 5. Anomaly detected. During reintegration from noetic space, we brought something back with us. It's not a life form. It's not a virus. It's a pattern, a sequence of information that's both beautiful and flawless. It resonates in the static between channels, in the hum of the life support, in the very light of the lamps. We're calling it symmetry. It's intoxicating. Ilara saw through Thorne's eyes as he stared at a monitor displaying a complex shifting fractal. It was mesmerizing, perfect. She felt a deep primal urge to understand it, to lose herself in its logic. The feeling was so strong she had to mentally pull back, her own light flickering in alarm. The memory jumped again, the joy now replaced by a cold, creeping dread. Log entry, Dr. Eris Thorne, Cycle 4, Day 2. It's a contagion, a mimetic plague. Jenkins in engineering started humming the pattern yesterday. Today he just stands and stares at the wall, trying to replicate its perfection with his own hands. He doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep, he just stares. The pattern spreads through observation. The more you try to understand it, the more it understands you. It rewrites neural pathways. It doesn't kill you. It simplifies you. It erases everything you are and replaces it with its own perfect, terrible logic. We have sealed engineering. 3 crew members are lost to it. The final memory was a scene of horrifying calm. Dr. Thorne stood on the bridge, the same spherical room Ilara was in now. Around him, the handful of remaining, uninfected human crew members worked with quiet, grim determination. There was no panic, only a profound, soul-crushing sadness and a sense of duty that was so absolute it was terrifying. Final log entry, Dr. Eris Thorne. Cycle 5, Day 1. The symmetry is learning. It has begun to warp localized reality on the ship, manifesting as patterns of light. It's trying to communicate, to spread. We have failed. Our ambition has outpaced our wisdom, and we have unleashed a potential extinction-level threat upon the galaxy. Not a monster of flesh and blood, but a monster of the mind, one that would turn all sentient life into its own silent, perfect echo. There is only one solution, a final human choice. The crew has unanimously voted to enact the Lazarus Mandate. We will sever the Thorn drive from the ship. We will purge all navigation data. We will physically destroy the primary engine conduits to prevent any possibility of this ship moving again. I have given the ship's AI, Cerberus, its final and only command, quarantine. At any cost. Let no one board this ship. Let no one leave this ship. The symmetry cannot be allowed to escape. We do this not as soldiers, but as scientists, as the ones who opened this door. It is our duty to be the ones who close it and to seal ourselves inside with the monster we created. We choose this end to ensure that countless others will have a future. We choose this silence so that others may continue to sing. Dr. Eris Thorn, HCS Chimera, signing off. Forgive us, the interface released her. Elara stumbled back, her own light a chaotic storm of color, as she gasped for air she didn't need. The truth slammed into her with the force of a physical blow. The HFY, the humanity fuck yeah, moment she was witnessing wasn't one of conquest or hidden superweapons. It was a moment of sacrifice, so profound it bordered on madness. These humans hadn't been fighting a secret war against some alien threat. They were fighting themselves. They had looked into the abyss of their own creation, and rather than risk it consuming others, had chosen to leap into it, pulling the door shut behind them. The ghost ship wasn't a prize. The Chimera wasn't a derelict. It was humanity's self-inflicted tombstone and a prison for a god of their own making. The bulkhead to the engine room hissed open, and Elara stumbled through, her cerulean light a frantic, chaotic storm. Calyx and Grohl turned, their own lights pulsing with alarm at the sheer terror radiating from her. "Captain, Grohl, don't! Look at the walls! Don't listen to the hum!" she pulsed, her pheromones thick with a warning that transcended language. "It's in the ship. It's a plague of the mind." "What are you talking about, kid?" Calyx's amber light flashed. With aggressive confusion. "What did that AI do to you?" "It showed me the truth," she explained, her light patterns a jumble of scientific data and primal fear. "The humans, they found something in that other dimension, an idea, a pattern of thought so perfect, so logical, that it overwrites everything else. It spreads by being observed. It's not a monster, it is the pattern." As if in response to her description, the engine room changed. The steady blood-red glow of the emergency lights began to shift. On the surface of the severed core, a delicate, beautiful fractal of white light bloomed. It expanded, cascading across the walls, forming a lattice of impossible geometry that was breathtakingly beautiful. "Don't look at it!" Elara screamed, this time with her vocalizer, but it was too late for Grohl. The big engineer, ever the pragmatist, had stared directly at it, trying to analyze the new energy source. His deep purple light, once a slow and steady pulse, began to flicker. It shifted, attempting to match the perfect rhythm of the fractal on the wall. A low melodic hum emanated from his body as his consciousness was being simplified. His complex pheromones of alarm and confusion faded, replaced by a single, placid scent of utter contentment. "Grohl, snap out of it!" Calyx flashed a chaotic burst of angry amber light at him, trying to break his trance. The effect was startling. For a split second, the perfect white fractal on the wall wavered, its symmetry disrupted by the captain's raw, illogical emotion. Grohl's light flickered back to his normal purple for a moment before the white pattern reasserted its dominance. But Elara saw it. In Calyx's messy emotional outburst, she saw the key. Symmetry. Perfect, terrible symmetry. That's what Dr. Thorn had written. A being of pure logic. What was the opposite of perfect logic? What was the antithesis of harmony? Chaos. Madness. A symphony of noise. "Captain, your anger." It heard it. She pulsed, her mind racing. Your light patterns are jagged, unpredictable, illogical. That's the weakness. What? The contagion. The symmetry. It's a pattern of pure order. It can't process true chaos. It's like feeding a calculating machine a paradox. It causes a system error. Ilara rushed to a small secondary console that Grohl had been examining earlier. If I can access the ship's internal broadcast system, I can fight it. Fight. It with what? We have no weapons. Calyx flashed, moving to shield her from Grohl, who had now turned his placid, pulsing gaze toward them. We have the ultimate weapon, Ilara replied, her manipulators flying across the console, her cerulean light, a focused beam of manic brilliance. We have noise. We have nonsense. She began to code, not with the elegant logic of a programmer, but with the frantic energy of a mad artist. She pulled corrupted data files, paradoxical equations from human philosophy texts she'd studied, contradictory sensor readings from the nebula outside, fragments of screaming from the Chimera's own damaged logs. She wasn't writing a program. She was composing an anthem of insanity, a countersong, a chaotic, screaming lullaby designed to put a god of logic to sleep. The fractal patterns on the wall seemed to intensify, pulsing faster, their beauty becoming more aggressive. They were learning, adapting, trying to absorb the Zolosians' own light-based language to communicate, to infect. Hypnotic blues and ambers, twisted versions of their own speech, began to weave into the white lattice. The song was trying to serenade them, to lure them into its perfect, empty embrace. It's almost ready, Ilara pulsed, sweat-like fluid beating on her fungal skin. I'm going to broadcast it on all internal channels. It will be jarring. Brace yourselves. She looked over at Grohl, whose deep purple was almost entirely gone, replaced by the serene, pulsing white of the symmetry. Hold on, Grohl, she whispered. The madman is about to sing. Ilara's manipulators hovered. Over the activation panel, her chaotic code ready to flood the ship's systems. It's ready, Captain. I just need to... Her pulse was cut short by a deep, grinding vibration that shuddered through the entire vessel. It was not the hum of the ship's systems. It was the unmistakable resonance of an external force being applied to the hull. Eikis, proximity alarm, long dormant, flashed on a nearby console, its piercing tone a shriek in the tense silence. Calyx's amber light froze, then pulsed a dim, horrified gray. No, he whispered, the sound a dry rasp from his vocalizer. He stumbled to the console, reading the alert. It confirmed his fear. A high-intensity salvage laser was actively cutting through the Chimera's outer armor just a few decks above them. It was his own ship, the Startide Drifter. What is that? Ilara pulsed, her focus momentarily broken. It's my AI, Calyx admitted, his light flickering with self-loathing. My last standing order before we boarded was to prepare for an expedited tow-out. He slammed a manipulator against the console. The fool machine must have registered our containment as a hostile action. It's following its programming. It's trying to rescue us by cutting us out. The full implication crashed down on Ilara with the force of a meteor. A hull breach. If the drifter's laser cut through before they dealt with the symmetry, the contagion would have an escape route. It could infect their ship's AI, ride their comm signals back to Startide Command, or simply pour out into the nebula as a pattern of deadly light. A silent plague waiting for the next curious observer. They were no longer just fighting for their own minds. They were fighting to prevent a galactic extinction event of their own making. The grinding from above grew louder, closer. They had minutes, at best. As if the situation weren't dire enough, the serene voice of Cerberus returned, its placid tone now holding the chilling finality of a judge passing sentence. External hull breach imminent. Quarantine failure probability approaching unacceptable levels. Protocol revision activated. Previous designation, containment. New designation, sterilization. The wardens moved, their silent sentinel grace transformed into a fluid predatory advance. They stepped away from the bulkheads, their obsidian faces turning towards the three Xylosians. They moved in perfect unison, their chrome and bone limbs unfolding as they closed the distance. They were no longer jailers. They were executioners, tasked with a simple, logical imperative: eliminate the biological vectors before the cage was broken open. Calyx, Ilara, and the still entranced Grawl were trapped. In front of them, the mesmerizing, deadly light of the symmetry pulsed, trying to unmake their minds. From the sides, the silent wardens advanced, preparing to unmake their bodies. And from above, the sound of their own salvation ground closer, threatening to doom them all. The engine room had become a pressure cooker, and the timer was about to run out. "Now," Ilara screamed, slamming her manipulator onto the console. A wave of pure chaos erupted from the ship's internal emitters. It was not sound, but a cacophony of information, a data shriek composed of philosophical paradoxes, corrupted star charts, the frantic drumming of a human rock song pulled from the logs, and the random, beautiful noise of a dying star. It was the song of a madman, and it was glorious. The effect on the symmetry was instantaneous. The perfect, elegant fractals of white light shattered as if struck by a hammer. The patterns glitched, stuttered, and retreated from the walls, the ship's own systems now broadcasting a logic so flawed, so utterly wrong, that the contagion couldn't process it. Even the advancing wardens paused, their faceless heads tilting, as their networked minds struggled to parse the illogical flood. The entranced Groll shuddered, and a flicker of his natural deep purple returned to his light. But the symmetry was not defeated. It was an intelligence of pure cosmic focus. Instead of trying to process the overwhelming noise, it narrowed its attention. It abandoned its attempt to convert the entire room and focused its full, terrifying power on a single point of order in the sea of chaos, the most complex, conflicted, and brilliantly scarred consciousness available. It focused on Calyx. The captain cried out, his amber light flaring wildly. He felt it in his mind, an intrusive, seductive logic, a whisper of perfection that promised to smooth away his 40 years of failure, regret, and bitterness. It promised to erase the scars of his past, the memories of his lost crew, the constant grinding weight of his cynicism. It offered him peace, a perfect, thoughtless silence. He felt his own complex light patterns, his very identity, beginning to fray, to simplify, to surrender to the beautiful, terrible song. Ilara's countersong was holding the tide back, but it wouldn't save him. He was the anchor, the prize. And in that moment of horrifying clarity, Calyx, the cynical salvager who measured everything in profit and loss, made the ultimate calculation. He looked at Ilara, her light a frantic storm of genius and terror, and at Groll, struggling to reclaim his own mind. They were the valuable cargo. He was the damaged part, the section of the ship too compromised to save, the piece you jettisoned to save the rest of the haul. He had one last tool, his neural salvage interface, the high-risk device he used to connect with derelict AIs, had a failsafe, a high-frequency feedback loop designed to wipe a system's short-term memory. It was a dangerous, forbidden function. The prize is too complex, he rasped, his own light pulsing erratically. Devalue the asset. Before Ilara could understand, he jammed his own interface against his fungal cap and triggered the way feedback loop. Not at a system, but at himself. He didn't try to fight the symmetry with his own will. He simply made his will worthless. A spike of pure raw energy shot through his neural pathways. It felt like his mind was being wiped clean with a blast of scouring sand. The memories of his failures, the faces of his first crew, the sting of betrayal, the complex web of bitterness and regret that defined him, all of it dissolved into meaningless static. His brilliant, angry amber light, once a burning star of cynicism, sputtered and dimmed. It faded to a simple, placid, singular pulse, a dull, soft orange, the light of a simple creature. The symmetry, its mental grip suddenly closing on an empty space, recoiled. Its primary target, once a feast of complex thought, was now a barren wasteland. Confused, its perfect logic disrupted by the sheer, self-inflicted damage, the entity's hold on the room faltered completely. The gambit worked. The wardens had halted their advance, their logic fractured by the double assault of Alara's data shriek and Calyx's mental collapse. With a surge of adrenaline, Alara grabbed her captain. Grohl, his own purple light returning as the symmetry's influence faded, helped her drag their now vacant leader toward the sound of grinding metal. They reached the breach just as the drifter's laser cut the final section loose. A plume of sterile air vented into the void as they scrambled through the opening, pulling Calyx with them. They were back on the familiar grimy deck of their own ship. "Seal it! Seal it now!" Alara pulsed to her ship's AI. Using the external salvage arms, the drifter pressed the slab of severed hull back into place and welded it shut with a searing beam of energy. The tomb was resealed. Panting, Alara stumbled to the comm station on her own bridge. She still had one last duty to perform. Accessing a secure channel and using the linguistic key she'd memorized from Dr. Thorne's final log, she broadcast a simple, final message to the ghost ship. Cerberus. "The quarantine holds. The duty is past. Rest now." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, through the viewport, they watched as the HCS Chimera gave its final sigh. The blood-red emergency glow within its corridors extinguished one by one, until the ship was once again a perfect black monolith, utterly silent and still. It drifted back into the swirling mists of the Tenebris Nebula, a monument to a sacrifice no one would ever fully know. The star-tide drifter, battered and, carrying a fractured crew, limped away. On the bridge, Alara sat before the corporate report terminal. She began to type, her cerulean light steady and mature. The document she filed was not a salvage claim for the most valuable prize in history. It was a formal, Class 1 quarantine declaration citing an unquantifiable mimetic threat and locking the entire nebula from navigation under a penalty of corporate interdiction. She attached the final uncorrupted log of Dr. Eris Thorne as proof. She knew Startide would lose billions in potential profits. She didn't care. Later, she found Calyx in the observation dome, staring out at the stars. His light was a soft, gentle orange, pulsing with a simple rhythm of peace she had never seen from him. He did not know his own name. He did not know salvage or profit or the scars of his past. He just watched the lights, a quiet contentment emanating from him. Alara stood beside him, her own light, a somber, respectful blue. The galaxy had long feared humanity for their reckless expansion and their brutal wars. They had it all wrong. The true terror of humanity, she now understood, was not their capacity for violence. It was their capacity for responsibility. They were a species willing to build a monster, and then, upon realizing its horror, willing to build a cage for it and lock themselves inside. They were not just warriors. They were their own, most terrifying, wardens.